Joining us now from Alexandria, Virginia, is Republican strategist Ed Gillespie, a former White House counselor for George W. Bush. He is now a senior advisor to the Mitt Romney campaign. And Ed, thanks so much for being with us today.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, last night, Mitt Romney stated that Scott Walker's win will echo beyond the border of Wisconsin. In your view, does Scott Walker's victory suggest that the Republican revolution is back on?
I think it shows that the American people and people of Wisconsin still favor a center-right approach to government and reject the big government agenda of the labor unions and of the Democrats in the state of Wisconsin and of President Obama and his administration. And so the results from yesterday will have a reverberating effect around the country, and I think they reflect the views of the American people, not only Wisconsinites, but a majority of Americans.
Now, how does the Walker victory impact the Romney campaign? Did the campaign just get a boost of momentum that will help Romney capture the White House in November?
Well, I think clearly Wisconsin is in play, which is saying a lot. The fact is a Republican president or presidential nominee has not carried Wisconsin since Ronald Reagan did it in 1984. It's been close since then, but it's never been carried by a Republican. So I don't think that we can put Wisconsin in the lean Republican column, but we can certainly put it in the contested state column today. And the victory on the ground for Governor Walker was an important one yesterday in terms of the implications for November.
Do you think that Mitt Romney could go on to take Wisconsin?
I think he could. The fact is, when you look at the Great Lakes as a whole, not only Wisconsin, but Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, all states that were carried by President Obama in 2008, all states that I think are going to be heavily contested in 2012. And Wisconsin is a reflection of that drift away from big government liberal policies in the Great Lakes toward fiscal responsibility and getting control of federal spending and encouraging job creation and free enterprise in the states. We're seeing that across the Great Lakes with Republican governors, but I think that those voters would like to see that across the country with a Republican president.
Ed, do you think that the unions are beginning to lose their political clout, or are they going to remain a force in this year's presidential election?
Oh, they'll be a force, and they'll spend a ton of money, just like they did in Wisconsin. They have the advantage of compulsory union dues taken directly from people's paychecks, spent against candidates that many of those union members support. Public employee unions in particular, who have been an increasing share of union membership in this country as the private sector union roles have declined, will be very active in this presidential campaign. You can count on that.
Now, some are suggesting that in the wake of Scott Walker's victory, that Mitt Romney should go even further to the right. Do you see that happening?
Well, Governor Romney has a policy agenda that's very positive in terms of fostering job creation. It begins with an understanding that we need to lower taxes and rein in federal spending. That is a damper on our economy. It understands that we need to repeal the Obamacare bill and the job-killing employer mandate and the job-killing taxes in that bill and replace it with market-oriented reforms that make health care affordable and accessible but don't kill jobs. It understands that we need to approve the Keystone XL pipeline, which would immediately bring thousands of jobs to American workers, high-paying jobs. It understands that we have to stop killing small business creation with excessive regulations and mandates. So Governor Romney has a very vigorous pro-growth economic agenda, and I do think that that's what the American people are looking for right now as we, struggle with our 39th straight month of unemployment above 8%.
Yesterday, pollster John Zogby told me in a Newsmax TV interview that a Walker win would possibly embolden Mitt Romney to choose a conservative vice presidential running mate, a John Kasich, Chris Christie, someone who is a fellow outsider, a battler of the unions, someone who speaks for the taxpayers. Will Mitt Romney go conservative with his VP choice?
Well, I think obviously Governor Romney's vice presidential nominee will be someone who shares his commitment to conservative principles and to lower taxes and reducing our debt and our deficits and reining in federal spending. So I'm sure that whomever Governor Romney chooses will be someone who shares his conservative principles. But I'm not in a position to speculate on names at this point. There's a process that's ongoing, and I respect the process. And I'm going to let that play out and give Governor Romney, obviously, the opportunity to weigh his choices and make his decision.
John Zogby's research shows that 16% of evangelical Christians are undecided, and that a third of those undecided evangelicals will never vote for a Mormon. He says, how can you get these folks excited about a Romney for president campaign?
Well, I think as evangelical voters and people of faith look at Governor Romney's agenda relative to President Obama's agenda, they'll realize that Governor Romney's policies are more in line with their principles and the values that we share. And so I think that, it's understandable that here in June there'd be a big chunk of undecided voters out there in the electorate. I think as we get closer in the fall, after Labor Day, September, October, November, obviously the number of those undecided voters is going to come down. And I believe that evangelical voters and people of faith are going to overwhelmingly support Governor Romney and his agenda.
Okay, let's talk about the woman vote. President Obama has a decided advantage here, but a Washington Post ABC News poll showed Romney is trending up with a 13% boost in popularity among women, while the president's favorability rating among women dipped by 7%. What should the campaign strategy be, and can Romney's wife, Ann, make a big difference here?
Well, I think Mrs. Romney is a huge asset to Governor Romney, not only obviously personally and the strong marriage that they share, and I'm sure it helps sustain the governor in a tough campaign, but also as someone that people very readily relate to and like very much. But the fact is, women voters are going to cast votes in this election, along with the broader electorate in terms of their concerns. Their concerns are about jobs. Their concerns are about their own jobs, their spouses' jobs, opportunities for their children who are being graduated from high school or college, and understanding that right now they face a very difficult environment because of the president's policies. I think they appreciate the education reforms that Governor Romney talked about in Philadelphia a little while ago. I think they appreciate his stand on health care. Women voters make a lot of the decisions about health care in their families, are very familiar with the choices they have and the quality of care that they have right now. They understand that according to estimates, up to 20 million Americans who like the insurance they have are at risk of losing the insurance they have under Obamacare despite the promises. They see that premiums are continuing to rise despite the promise that would not happen under Obamacare. They see that the deficit is increasing as a result of Obamacare, and they see that jobs are being lost as a result of the Obamacare bill. So I think across the board, as women voters like men voters look at the issues that are most important to their quality of life and to the future of the country, I believe that gap is going to close even further than it already has. We've always had, not always, but for a long time, for 30 years, a gender gap on both sides of the equation, by the way. There is a gender gap amongst male voters with Democratic nominees for president, and there's been a gender gap with female voters amongst Republican nominees for president. The question is, how big is that gap? And I believe that you're going to see that gap narrow even further between now and November for Governor Romney.
Okay, let's talk about younger voters. President Obama is losing support among voters 18 to 29, a huge crack in his base. Do you see this group of voters going for Mitt Romney?
I do. I think we'll make great gains with younger voters, not just the 18 to 29. I would take that up to 34 years of age, but 18 to 29 is the biggest cohort there, and I think that a lot of these younger voters understand that the hope and change that they bought into in 2008 has not materialized in terms of improving their chances for advancing in the job market, getting a job at all, having wages go up because of the stagnant economy that we're facing as a result of President Obama's policies. I think it's one of the greatest opportunities for growth compared to 2008. for Governor Romney in 2012.
Last question for you, Ed. Splitting from President Obama, former President Bill Clinton Tuesday urged Congress to extend the Bush tax cuts, which are due to expire at the end of the year. In the end, whose campaign is the former president helping, Barack Obama's or Mitt Romney's?
Well, President Clinton obviously speaks his mind and shares what he thinks is best policy for the economy. And in this case, he's at odds with President Obama. I think that's very revealing. It's not the first time. Obviously, when President Obama and the Obama campaign were attacking Governor Romney for his success in the private sector, President Clinton rightly noted that he was had a sterling reputation in the private sector economy, and he was not alone in that regard in kind of pushing back against the Obama campaign attacks against Governor Romney's private sector experience, because I think he understood, as did others, that in trying to diminish what is one of Governor Romney's greatest assets, in terms of how the voters see him and how he would serve as President of the United States, President Obama was reinforcing one of his greatest vulnerabilities, which is that he's hostile to job creators. And I think President Clinton was trying to do him a favor by waving him off of that line of attack, and maybe he felt he was trying to do President Obama a favor here and trying to encourage him to embrace the current tax rates rather than have them go up in January. I'm not sure that, obviously President Obama doesn't see it that way, but I do, find myself wondering sometimes if President Clinton is getting talking points from Chicago, and if he's reading them or just tossing them aside.
Ed Gillespie, thanks so much for being with us today. It's always good to have you on Newsmax TV.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.